Today, we are talking about touching the hot stove. And sometimes you just have to go through the mistakes and make them yourself before you end up learning from them.
Welcome to the Private Lenders Podcast with your host from Hard Money Bankers, Jason Balin and Chris Haddon. This podcast is sponsored by hardmoneymastermind.com.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out the show. If you haven't done so already, go take a look at some live events and one-day consulting things that we have coming up. Just go to hardmoneymastermind.com, click on live events, schedule a time to talk to Dave Bauer to learn more. All right. This is a cool topic. It covers a few different areas. This has come up a number of times recently. And the idea is, so within the mastermind, when we're having meetings and everything else, you can be told by another lender, like, do this, don't do that. And often, like, you may or may not really take away that lesson. Oftentimes, you have to go through it yourself. You have to touch the hot stove. You have to take a hit, learn from your own mistakes, IRL, instead of just being told by somebody who had been there. So we're going to go through a few examples today.
I mean, not only are there a few examples, there are examples that we have firsthand experience with. So we can tell you from experience, we already touched the stove and it's freaking hot. So, and that's the least of your worries is getting stung or getting hit that way. So, all right. So should we talk about some underwriting stuff first? I mean, listen, there's no the reason why we are conservative, the reason why we make borrowers put down 20%, 30%, 40%, the reason why we set our underwriting parameters the way that we do and that we're conservative is because we have our defaults. We've had lots of defaults. We've been stung. We've learned from experience. We've done over 4,000 deals. We've had, over the years, we've had lots of defaults. We always kind of joke about that we can kind of predict the future of how these deals are going to perform, how they're not going to perform, and things like that. We've been through it. This isn't made up.
Yeah.
Listen, if I thought we could lend at 100% financing and be in a good position and everyone get paid and be zero headaches and we could just lend money to this person and that person, we would certainly do it and we'd have a bigger portfolio. But
Right.
that's not reality.
I mean, that's one of the first lessons that people learn when they come into the mastermind group. Granted, like, we don't want to preach to people. We don't want to, like, cram it down their throats, like our view on leverage and underwriting and everything else, and like monthly payments versus accruing interest. Like, we'll tell you the way we do it. Other lenders in the room will do the same. But ultimately, you have to walk that road yourself. And this is a very common one where you think you can do 100% financing on fix and flip deals and that everything's going to work out great and everybody makes money because, oh, hey, I know this lender over here and that's what he does and he seems to have a great business. Okay. So you really have to touch the hot stove. And in this case, that means you're going to go through a default that at 100% leverage is probably going to lose money in all likelihood, right? 90%, depending on the state and the foreclosure laws, you might scrape out clean, maybe not. Maybe in a lot of judicial foreclosure states, you're going to need to be at 80% or 20% down payment in order to get out without taking a loss, right? And typically, lenders in the mastermind group have to experience that themselves. A deal goes into a foreclosure, or maybe somebody bails on it. We got an email from a mastermind member, I think it was yesterday, asking about some insurance related stuff because he's caught his first default. Like, he hasn't done all that many loans over the past handful of years. It takes some time. It doesn't come right away. And he ran into a situation where the borrower's out of money. They're not going to complete the rehab and he can't get a hold of them. They walked away. Right. So there's only one place that if the borrower disappears, there's only one place that that's going to go. And that's to foreclosure auction sale. And how the numbers play out, it's going to teach him some stuff about how good his underwriting was, how accurate that amount of leverage was. And it's just a road you have to walk, right? And then make adjustments afterwards.
Yeah. I mean, listen, you could give somebody an unsecured loan and they could pay you back. It doesn't mean that it was a good, safe deal, but it could happen, right? They
Right.
could pay you back. I mean, the reality is a lot of the deals that you do that, most real estate investors or borrowers aren't going to be intentionally malicious on the front end where you give them money and then they disappear and they're like, screw you, I'm never giving you your money back. But you kind of have to babysit them and, plan for what happens. And, you know, investors make mistakes, deals fall apart. I mean, I remember like a lot of the early deals that defaulted because we were real, like, I mean, we've always been very cautious, but some of the early deals, like we would have the ones that defaulted, we would look back, be like, what was the learning lesson? And there really wasn't a learning lesson because like we felt like we underwrote that deal the right way, and the borrower made just shit the bed. Something happened, like something drastic in their family happened, or something just out of their control. It wasn't being malicious. And we did fine on those deals, right? Because we underwrote them the right way and there was plenty of equity. So when we had to go to foreclose and, default them, it still worked out. So just,
Yeah,
be-
that's a big one when it comes to underwriting. And then also an early lesson that a lot of lenders learn is about collecting monthly payments instead of accruing interest. Um, so
which we always
that's
did.
a common one too.
We didn't even know about accruing. We never really did it that way because we're like, okay, we're raising capital and our capital investors want their money.
Yeah,
It
we
just
came
made
from a
sense.
mortgage background where everybody makes monthly payments.
True. All right. So the next one is always wondering if you should start brokering DSCR loans, brokering fix and flip loans, doing institutional capital sources because you're frustrated that a lot of your good borrowers, well, number one, you're frustrated that a lot of your good borrowers are you're losing, or they decided to go with someone else that's cheaper than you. So that's the one side. Or because you think you could help dictate their exit strategy and you say, okay, well, they're doing the Burr model. I can only do the front end. But if I had if I could broker these DSCR loans, I can get paid on that side as well. And
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean,
a lot of it has to do with the thought that you're leaving money on the table. Like these leads, these deals fit inside my box of what I can do with the private capital I control. But I get all these other leads coming in, like DSCR, like maybe ground up construction, like maybe commercial, like maybe deals outside of your area that why wouldn't I just broker that out? It's better to make 3,000 bucks on this deal than zero and just pass on it. That's a logical thing for people to think. And look, we've been through it a couple times. Our one of our business partners went through this 2 or 3 years ago. That same sort of thing. Like, why are we leaving money on the table? We should just be brokering these out or sending them to some other capital source. And what inevitably happens, because we've seen it over and over, is that you put time and energy into brokering these deals. It's not zero work. There's work involved. Like you're the point person for this.
yep.
Now you're dealing with an institutional capital source that is going to make the process a complete pain in the ass. And keep in mind, like your name's on the line. It's your company front facing. These institutional capital sources are behind the scenes. And so if anybody has a complaint, that's going to be complained to your lending company as if you're in control of all this stuff. And at the end of it, you do a dozen of these, or you attempt to, over a number of months. Maybe you get something closed, maybe you don't. You're like, I just put all this effort. I tried to broker out a couple dozen deals. I closed one or two. I made 5 grand. I spent a good portion of every day on this stuff. These borrowers are mad at me. They're not coming back. And you touched a hot stove. And you had to learn that lesson yourself and be like, this is a complete waste of time. It just took my focus away from my core business where I actually make money. And it's something that most people have to go through, just like I described. If me or Jason or somebody else tell you, like, look, here's what's going to happen, they'll be like, no, I don't believe that. Why would I? There's $1 million deal. There's $1 million ground up construction deal. Why would I just pass on it? But
And they're, yeah.
everyone's
It's a,
a lot of people listening right now are like, shit, I've been there. I went through this exact thing. I came to the exact conclusion. And like Bryce Matheson, from Lender Software said, he's like, God damn, Chris and Jason were right. It's so annoying. It annoys me. Like they tell me what's going to happen. A year later, I realized they were right. And I'm like, look, it's not because we're geniuses. It's just because we've been through that. We went through that at least one iteration,
yeah.
right?
It's a different bit. I mean, in that brokering DSCR loans or brokering fix and flips, I mean, it's a different business model. If you want to be a mortgage company and not a hard money lender, and you want to just deploy other people's money and just collect fees and be a sales operation, then do it. Like, if that's the business model you want to do, but it's a separate business. Like, let's be clear, it is a different business completely. And it's not that fun of a business. So the hard money site, the hard money business is way more fun. And also, and this isn't really part of this, but like, this is an investment vehicle, and we can go we can deploying your own money into these deals. You can make twice as much money if if you're using your own money instead of investor capital. But we can go. There's 1,000 reasons why hard money is the best business model. Anyways, in our opinion. So let's talk about some raising capital stuff, because I think that's one thing that you know, we didn't get stung on. I don't think that's the right term in this case, but we definitely had an aha moment, and we definitely learned that, hey, if we want to raise capital at scale, we have to be doing good deals. And the proof's in the pudding. The the people told us that. When we started, it was interesting because we thought we had access to zero capital, which we did have access to zero capital for a short period of time until we learned how to raise it. And we thought that we had unlimited deal flow. We're like, yeah, we came from the mortgage business. We know the retail side, the wholesale side. We're real estate investors. We know all these people. We got access to unlimited deals. It's not a problem. Well, guess what? We had access to unlimited leads or unlimited contacts. Like, I don't want to say unlimited. We knew a lot of people, but that didn't mean they were good deals and good opportunities. And when we were having investor meetings, every one of our investors said, damn, so you can find deals, or you guys are lending on deals for borrowers with good credit. They're down payments. They have experience. They're in my local market. There's this, they're that. Like, yeah, I'll do those deals. I'd be happy to be invested and do deals like that with you guys and be a co-lender on some of those things. Find me those deals. And we're like, no problem. Let's go find those deals. And then, just like everybody else, we went to meetup groups. Back then, RIA groups. We did a lot of marketing stuff, and there was a lot of interest. But then people were like, "Yeah, they didn't materialize into anything." And then we had to, do marketing and lead flow and network and do everything. That's what ended up being the hard part. And that's the hard part for most people today, is finding good opportunities, right? Because you talk to borrowers at your meetup group, they're like, sure, friend, I'll be happy to work with you. What are your terms? 13 and 3. Ooh, that's a little high. How much money do I need to put down? 20%. Ooh, this guy's giving me 100% financing at 9 and 1. Right. So that's when the challenging part says, but you got to be disciplined, because if you do that, not only are you taking on too much risk, you're jeopardizing the capital from your investors, and it's going to be harder to raise capital that way. So after we, were able to communicate and meet some capital investors and explain to them the types of deals that we're doing, they were like, sure, just keep filling up my bucket with those types of deals, and I got unlimited capital behind me in order to help you.
Yeah, and that's the real leap of faith that I think is a good takeaway for this section, is that if your deals are good enough, the capital's going to be there. I remember being told that early on when we were starting HMB and actively raising. And I remember having this conversation with a developer friend of ours, that we both just had trouble believing the capital would be there if we had deals that were good enough. Meaning, like, if you have this deal in your lap that you're underwriting and you're actively looking for capital, that deal is going to make it happen. Granted, you got to have the meetings, you got to do the presentations, you got to have the calls, you got to be in front of the right people. But if your deal's good enough, capital's going to find it. That is a real leap of faith. That's a tough thing to do, to put out a term sheet for $500K when you don't have $500K in available capital, and trust that you'll be able to find it because your deal's good enough. And it absolutely turns out to be true. Many people in real estate and other kinds of finance will say the same thing. And then you got to realize on the other side, if you've had trouble raising capital, it may be because your deals aren't strong enough or aren't as strong as you think. Now, if you don't have any capital because you haven't put in the work, you haven't had the meetings and the contacts and the follow-ups and everything else, that's one thing. That's one thing. But if you have had, you've been in front of the right people, you're following up, you've done the meetings and the calls and the Zooms, however you're presenting to potential capital investors, and you don't have enough capital, I would take a hard look at your deals at your deal quality, your LTV, your borrower quality, because in our experience in the mastermind, it's usually kind of so deals. Maybe this is okay, where people really spin their wheels on the capital raise.
Like, think about this. Let's say you have $100,000 that you want to invest in something. What is the no-brainer number for you, right? What's the no-brainer number? Like, what's the terms? What's the no-brainer rate of return that you want? What's the no-brainer collateral and structure that you want? And you might be like, "Oh, man, I'm really conservative. I want a 12% return, and, I only wanna do deals at, like, 50 LTV," type of thing. Okay, well, that's your threshold. And listen, I'm not saying that you can potentially, scale at those numbers, but it's possible, right? Like, you got supply, you got demand, and you gotta figure out you gotta meet the 2, and you gotta meet the 2 of those things in the middle. And we learned early on that if we're putting out really, really good deals and really good opportunities to our investor base, they're gonna continue to trust us, continue to reinvest, continue to not harp on defaults. Like, think about this, and a lot of people listening might have run into this problem before. You do a deal with a capital investor. The deal's not that the capital investor trusts you. The deal doesn't go that well, and the borrower defaults. They stop making payments. Something happens. It goes into default. Not only are you chasing around the borrower to try to make this due, you also have a capital investor who's upset with you, who not only might not reinvest with you, but maybe they're going to try to sue you, or maybe they're going to just do other stuff and be pissed off. Like, you can't have that. You can't run a business like that, how that works. You got to lend to good borrowers, and you got to work with, good capital investors and take care of them. And it all stems from the beginning. The reason we were able to snowball our capital base, and this took time, it doesn't happen overnight, right? Was providing good deals over and over and over and over and over. And like, that's what happens. If we're doing a bad deal, like if you're doing a bad deal with somebody and the deal falls apart and you're the capital investor, like, you might be upset with them, and might be a bad deal. And then, you lose that capital. Like, you shouldn't really be in a spot that your capital investors are leaving your fund, or if you're doing direct placement, that they're not continuing to reinvest with you. That's a sign that your deals aren't good, or the structure wasn't set up the right way. So stop trying to race to scale this business as quick as possible. Keep it at a kind of the right size where you can focus on getting good deals and good deals and good deals and good deals, and the thing will continue to snowball.
All right.
Right.
So
But
the fourth section on this one, in regards to touching the hot stove and learning from your mistakes, it's called shiny object syndrome. It happens to so many of us entrepreneurs during some point in our career. And so in this case, if your plan is to grow a good sized loan portfolio to the amount of revenue and profit that you want, there are going to be shiny objects that pop up that distract you from the main mission. And so, we've been through some of these in the past, building real estate software, buying rentals, writing a book unrelated to our business, and going out doing promo for that book and speaking and everything else. Um, and it's common. Like, everyone goes through this. It's part of being an entrepreneur. It's part of what got you into running your own business to begin with, is that you have that kind of desire to go after this and after that. And over time, we went through it midway in our career over a handful of years and a number of different shiny objects. And eventually you just end up shedding the distractions on the side and refocusing in on where you actually make your money and what you're actually good at, what your core
Sure.
competency is. And that's a natural progression. And also, I think it's something that people have to go through themselves. Like, you can't tell them, like, don't mess with this, don't mess with that. Because again,
Yeah.
it's like when we were talking about brokering deals out, it's like, you got to go through it. You're not, if somebody tells you that, you're going to be like, no, 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 I'm just going to put this amount of time into this thing too, and it'll make this amount of money and it'll be great. Um, and usually for most people, unless you're Elon Musk, it doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to focus on things that, that depend on what part of your business are, the money-making things, the growth things. Um, I mean, listen, we've both been involved in almost all aspects of the business from the beginning all the way to still being owner operators. but it's important to kind of know your role of what to focus on and, what in essence is going to continue to push the ball forward. And I think AI is good and bad at that point. Everybody's chasing different AI applications. Like, oh, it'd be cool if we had this in our business. It'd be cool if we had this in our business. And the real it would be cool. But the real question that you have to ask yourself is, am I going to make more money by doing this? Or am I going to be saving time by doing this? Or am I going to be helping some of our team members by doing this? And AI is a very, very good example for some of those things. Anywhere down from, building automated pre-approval letter generators, or helping with, new website stuff, or automating whatever, marketing efforts, social media content. Like all that stuff's great to potential help, or empower somebody else inside your operation to potentially put in place. But the point is the real answer is this going to make more money if I do some of these things?
I mean, the answer is often no, but it's hard to admit that. And just like the other examples, you got to go through it. You get to hear from us on a podcast, but in most situations, you're going to have to touch that hot stove yourself to truly learn the lesson. And then the important part is to make sure you adjust, to learn from mistakes and move forward in a safer, more profitable way. So thank you guys for checking out this podcast. We do appreciate it. To learn about everything we have going on the online mastermind and in in-person meetings, go to hardmoneymastermind.com, and we'll see you here next time on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us on this Private Lenders Podcast episode. Please note that opinions stated by all the speakers on this show are only opinions and not legal, financial, or accounting advice. Please make sure to always check with your own legal, financial, and accounting professionals. If you enjoyed this episode of the Private Lenders Podcast, we would appreciate it if you could spread the word. Make sure to check out hardmoneymastermind.com, the #1 community for all private and hard money lenders.